Hey everybody, it is me. So I want to share my testimony. Now, I believe your whole life is your testimony, and but I'm gonna share up until this point of my testimony. Okay, so as a child, sorry, I had an itchy eye there. As a child, is like I went through a lot of stuff. I was in and out through foster homes and things that happened to me as a child that were not good. Different kinds of abuses and such. And all my life, it's like I had a lot of mental, emotional abuse. Like from people all around my life, from people like friends, from family, from strangers, like from partnerships and all that kind of stuff. And I've always had as a child, I always had this like, I knew the world could be a better place than what it was. I already saw through the illusions, and every time I would bring that up to people, I'd be silenced about it, or I'd be like, you're just being silly, or this and that, like, so, like, to other people, it wasn't a big deal, right? I'd always lit up whenever we had to talk about God or Jesus, which is Yahuah. I would always light up. Like, I absolutely loved all of that stuff. Always. Like, I loved reading pieces from the Bible or those little, like, daily breads and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so, I get older and stuff like that, and then I had experiences, like, I fell into this occult stuff. I was very drawn to occult stuff later on when I was, like, a teenager, and I remember, like, being around this guy who had, like, this book. He had this book, like, it was, like, a satanic book and, like, a Bible and all that kind of stuff, and he always watched horror movies and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, what's this kind of stuff, I was all interested in it, and I was interested in witchcraft and sorceries, and I realized that a lot of my family on both sides are into stuff like that, so, yeah, not realizing what they're dabbling into, and then I realized that, I was very sensitive to spirit. That was something that the Most High had given me. I'm very, very sensitive to things of the spirit, and I didn't understand it though, and even up to adult, like everything I experienced, I didn't understand it fully. So my very first experience dealing with like spirit, like dark stuff, because I was going into dark stuff, was when I was like, no, I had an experience before I dabbled into that stuff. It was when I was 15 years old. Because it was around 16 or 17 I started dabbling into, like, the darker stuff. Like, just reading Bible, satanic stuff, and, like, Ouija boards and all that kind of stuff. Oh, no, I guess when I was 13, I did the Ouija board. Anyways, when I was 15, sorry, you guys. I'm, like, getting older here, so I'm forgetting some bits and pieces here, but when I was 15, I had an experience where I was living at a home, and I experienced these ghosts and stuff, these giggling girls, and they were all glowing, like a bluish color, and they were floating and stuff, and they were giggling and laughing, and I freaked right out. I wasn't believed, of course. I was like, get back to bed, you were dreaming or something. But I had just got into my bed, so, like, you would think my parents would have known I just went to bed. Like, there's no way I would have fallen asleep. Like, anyways, so that happened, and then I started dabbling with, like, trying to conjure up spirits and stuff like that, and I got a phone call. Or no, I was trying to use my phone. After I did all that, I tried to conjure spirits, and I would try to use the phone, and then my phone was sounding all wonky, like, and then I heard this really, like, creepy voice that said die and all that kind of stuff, and I was, like, freaked out. I, like, dropped my phone and started crying. I was like, what the heck was that? Like, can you imagine? And I was about, like, 16, 17, somewhere around there. And then, I was into all that kind of stuff, and I kind of just forgot about it. I just stopped all that kind of stuff, but I didn't realize I had opened some doors and stuff, right? So, later on, it was like I had met this guy that I knew from like my childhood, a crush that I had. So we ended up like dating, and then living together, and then I ended up getting pregnant. And he wanted to abort it and everything, and I was like, no, like there's no way. But then I ended up losing that child. Like I found out that he couldn't he was basically surviving off of me. So I had to be induced and like give birth to him, and I was like almost close to 6 months pregnant. So I had to give birth to him, and then he passed away. So that was a hard time in my life, and that I became kind of numb and like questioning life and everything. Hey, so then I was like really devastated, and I bawled and I like cried out to God, not fully knowing everything. Not fully knowing either, which I made a vow to God, but not really knowing that you're not supposed to do that after you read the Bible. You're not supposed to basically make promises and pacts and things like that you can't keep, or like you don't know what you're doing, right? So anyways, but I was like, oh, if you give me a son, I'll follow you all the days of my life. Like I want a son now again, like because my first one was a boy, and I was like, I want a son, and you give me a son, and I'll follow you. And I didn't know when I was pregnant that I was already pregnant. You guys, I was. And then I found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that was like, wow. Like, and then that opened my eyes to the Most High and the power of Yahuah. And I was like, now, mind you, I wasn't saying Yahuah then. I was just saying God and Jesus and stuff, okay? It wasn't until later on that I learned all about that, but because I was also warned that I'd fall away too from Yahuah. So that's crazy stuff. Like, I'll tell you about that. I used to do journal entries to God back and forth, and then I'd kind of sit there and meditate, and then I would get these things where I'd like write back what I was being told. Not an audible way, but like, in the mind or whatever. Like just, anyways, I didn't know that this. When you're following Yahuah, you're in awe all the time, you guys. Like, I mean, the things that he does and the way that he does things is like crazy to me. Like crazy, like as in awe, crazy. Okay. Anyways, I'm getting off track here. So, lo and behold, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I was so happy. Like, my whole pregnancy, I was like, I mean, I had stuff that was going on, but I was just so happy and light and like everything that was pregnant. And I was having a boy, a son. Or when I found out I had a son, I was like, it was another boy and everything. It was like exactly what I wanted and everything. And, and then, I gave birth to him and all that kind of stuff. Like, things were kind of, like, normal and everything, like, except for the matter, like, how he was born. Like, my father was, like, cheating around and just whatever, and it is what it is. And I eventually left him when my son was around 2 months. Because, like, he was into stuff that I was not wanting to be around if I was going to raise our son. So went and moved, and I got into low-income housing, all that kind of stuff, and then things happened there when my son was a baby. I remember I was having these dreams, like these like nightmarish dreams, and it was like creepy dreams and stuff. And then I was like constantly in fear. All of a sudden, fear is just taking hold of me and stuff. And I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know it had anything to do with like wanting to try to follow God and stuff like that, and that the enemy was like, I had no idea about all that kind of stuff, because I was just new to stuff, and I wasn't really reading my Bible. Like, I had promised to follow God and all that stuff, and like I read scripture here and there, and I would like talk to God here and there, but it wasn't like this big close relationship with him, because I was all like distracted with my new baby and all that kind of stuff, right? So then all these things were happening, and then I remember I was like laying in bed, and I remember something holding my hand, but it wasn't like scary. It was very peaceful, and I had no idea what that was, but that was like an experience. Like, I was awake when that happened, And I was like, oh, well, was that an angel? That's all I could really think, because I wasn't sure, right? Was that an angel? And this was while my son was sleeping in his crib, and I was sleeping. I was kind of like half laying there awake. Like I had woken up and then just kind of like, or if it was before I was sleeping, I don't know, something like that. Anyways, and then I also had this dream where I saw blood, and I saw a baby in the toilet, like blood and a baby in the toilet. And I picked him up, and I was like crying and stuff. And I thought, you guys, that had to represent my first son. I thought I was giving a chance to say goodbye or something. Because with my first son, they kind of took him away. I didn't want to hold him. I was too devastated. I didn't want to hold him and see him like that. So they just took him away. So I was like, oh, am I saying goodbye? But it could have been two things, you guys. Okay, so it could have been two in one in that dream. But I had no idea that this was like showing me that something else that was going to happen. 2 years, my son was 2 years old. I found out I was pregnant again. Now, mind you, I wasn't being good. Like, I was sleeping with two different people, and like I wasn't good. Like, so anyways, so there was a possibility between two different fathers of this child, and like everybody around me, like I was listening to the people, and then they're like, "Are you sure you want another one? That's gonna be expensive. It's gonna be hard. You're gonna start school, because I was supposed to be going back to school, like university and stuff." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't know." And then I like allowed all those thoughts to like make the decision that I was going to have an abortion. So when I think about that afterwards, after I had my abortion, I think about that dream. And